This is our free live training session for July, how to get your confident self back. So welcome to part 2 of our 4-month focus on the pits of expat quicksand, as they call them, when I see people struggling with the things that get tough in expat life. So June, we focused on creating connection to our loved ones when we take a trip back home and really enjoying our vacations. July is focused on creating a life upgrade, and that's what this session is all about. August will focus on purpose, and September will be on direction. So that's what we've got headed in the next 2 months, but this focus of the session is on how to get your confident self back. So I am Sunday Schneider-Bean of SundayBean.com, and I'm an intercultural strategist and solution-oriented coach, and I am on a mission to help you adapt and succeed abroad and get through any life transition. Now, if you're here, you might be here because you've been an expat spouse for years and you're out of your profession for a long time. Or maybe you're here because you want to change jobs, but you're afraid that that dream job just isn't out there for you. You might be here because you've been a stay-at-home mom and you've forgotten how you add value. And maybe you're here because you used to be confident, but after a few setbacks or years of kind of being out of the game, you've lost it. Okay, regardless of why you're here, welcome, and you're in the right place because you are definitely not alone. And I want to say thank you for showing up today. I know that you are sharing with me your most precious resource, and that is your time. So I promise that I will use your time effectively, and we will jump right in. So today in our session on how to get your confident self back, we will cover these things. 1, understanding the life-altering impact that a lack of confidence has on our happiness and future. And I mean that, life-altering impact. And you will walk away with a clear direction on how you can start building back your confidence. Okay, and I admit it, I know confidence is really a tricky thing. I saw a quote that I don't know the author of, but the quote is, it's not who you are that holds you back, but who you think you are. And that just gets to the core of confidence and how, depending on who we think we are, it steers the challenges that we take on and how we approach them. So for us to really understand how to build our confidence back, I think it's important for you to know, what do we know about confidence from the research? So a lot of the research that I'll be talking to you about today is from an article from The Atlantic, and it's called The Confidence Gap. You might have seen it, but all the research comes from highly credible institutions in the UK, in the United States, abroad, on studying exactly how confidence holds us back or serves us, depending on whether you have a lack of it or too much. So I'm going to boil down the key points that really make an impact, I think, when we talk about confidence. 1, to be very honest, we know from research there is a confidence gap between women and men, and there's a lot of factors why that might be. There's historical factors, contextual factors, even some might argue biological factors, but the reality is there's often a gap in confidence between women and men. And I think it's important to put that out there, because when you're thinking about the way you're feeling right now and comparing to people that you love and trust, know that if you're struggling with your confidence, there might be a lot of reasons why that's happening. Reasons outside of your control that have really huge socioeconomic implications. So it's not all your fault if there's something going on with your confidence. Everything is taking place in a bigger context. We know from studies that if you ask a group of individuals about whether they feel self-doubt when they're in a management situation, I think it's women, half of women feel self-doubt when only a third of men do. Okay, and that has a big impact on how we take action. We know that this is something that I think is really important, so I'm going to pause here and I hope you're listening. We know from research that confidence matters just as much as competence. Confidence matters just as much as competence. Isn't that crazy? So you can be super qualified, super competent, but if you're not confident, it has a huge impact. So studies show there's a correlation between success with confidence and competence. So if you're competent but not confident, you can be sabotaging your success. I think that is really, really an important message, because if you're working hard to create success in your life and it's not happening, and you keep getting degrees, master degree number 1, number 2, studying this, practicing that, but you're not looking at the confidence issue, you're missing a critical factor to your success. That's what I mean by life altering. Confidence matters just as much as competence. I wish that was not true. I honestly do. But what we know from research so far is that it does. Okay, and lack of confidence is an action killer. So we know this, right? When you aren't confident, you don't seize an opportunity. You don't go for that promotion. You hold yourself back from doing something. You don't introduce yourself to someone. You don't send that letter, right? This is like this downward spiral that we create. With inaction, you lose the ability to gain confidence, to move forward. Okay, it's like when girls are good at sports in primary school, and then when they get older, the boys start being faster, and they say, well, wait a minute, that sucks, that's hard, I'm not good at this anymore, and then they quit and do something they feel better at. We know this from research, this happens. And what happens is that when you say no, when something gets hard, you opt out of the opportunity to regain your confidence. Okay, so this is something we see happening, this downward spiral. And the last thing I think is important for us to know is that confidence, when there's a lack of confidence, it stops change from happening. So from a coaching perspective, there's like a magic formula that I love to use from Julio Olalia from Brazil. He's a coach, and he says there's this formula for change, and I see it all the time with my clients. Motivation times the attractiveness of your goal. So if you're motivated and the goal is attractive and you're confident that you can do it and you're clear on the next steps are, then you're going to make the effort to change. But if any one of those first elements are not there, it's like a mathematical problem. Everything is zero. You're not going to take the effort to change. So if you're feeling a lack of confidence that you can do something, then the change isn't going to happen. Okay, so this is the reality. I don't mean to say this to scare you, but I say this to sort of lay out the reality of how life-changing it is to take your life by your hands and say, I am going to do something about my confidence because it is impacting my life in obvious and really subtle but powerful ways. Okay, and this is tricky, right? This is a tricky spot. How do we build something that we want but kind of need it to get started, right? So that's the tricky part about it. And that's what I'm here to help you with in this session today. How to get our confident self back. And I know that there's some of you here that are watching live or are going to look at the recording, and this is maybe what your life looks like. You used to be super confident, and you decided to take an adventure abroad, support your partner, have children, and explore a culture and an adventure. But slowly over time, things started changing and you barely noticed it happening. And you introduce yourself at a party and they say, why are you here? And you would say, oh, my partner's here for this. And then they turned away and talked to somebody else. And little tiny things started happening in your life where your confidence got smaller, smaller, smaller. And you were no longer rewarded by grades or by performance reviews or by promotions or even a salary. Okay, so it's no wonder that your confidence has started to recede, because the things that you built your confidence on in the past are now gone. And now it's time to look for new ways to build your confidence. So I get it. I see this all the time. All right, let's look at 5 ways that you can get your confidence back. And this one, you're going to hate it. You're going to hate this one. The first way you can get your confidence back, if you're going to hate this one, is stop perfectionism. Okay? I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And I have my good days and my bad days, but I work with a lot of high performers. I work with a lot of talented individuals. I work with a lot of driven people. And we see that perfectionism is a killer to confidence. So here's what it looks like. The research from Sullivan and Thompson call this, it's really counterintuitive. It's called a plateau effect. Okay, so you're focused on creating results that are perfect. You want to be an amazing mom, really good at yoga. You want to do great at work. And what happens is you start wasting so much time and energy that you don't excel at anything. So perfectionism is stopping you. And it's oftentimes the reason why we're perfectionists is because we're not sure it's good enough, right? So I have an episode next week for you to check out about being good enough next week. And I'll tie together this cycle of perfectionism and good enough and how it's actually wasting your time and energy. So what do you do to stop perfectionism and invite more confidence in your life? You can experiment with the 80-20 principle. I'm sure you know what this is, but if you don't, the 80-20 principle is how can you invest 20% energy to get 80% of the result? Okay, so what can you do to work really smart around investing just the right amount of energy to get the biggest impact? Very clear. So go look that up if you're not familiar with it. Look for strategies in which you can practice that in your life. That will help you stop the perfectionist tendencies and save you time and energy. Another recommendation is you can start out by reading Brené's book, The Gifts of Imperfection. Brené Brown has a book, The Gifts of Imperfection. Great way to stop perfectionism, to start looking at it straight in the face and how it does not serve your life. So those are some ways that you can stop perfectionism. Okay, we know from research that perfectionism drains your energy. It drains your confidence because you operate from a place of this isn't good enough and you keep going further and further. Okay, so if you want to let go of perfectionism, you'll have your hands free to grab success. So stopping perfectionism is priority 1 to get your confidence back. And I know what you're thinking. Some of you are saying, listen, Sunday, I'm not a perfectionist. I used to be when I was a lawyer, but now I'm a stay-at-home mom. And you should see how my house is so dirty, right? Have a look, right? Look at your thoughts. When you're going through your day, are you saying my house isn't clean enough, my kids aren't polite enough, I'm not strong enough, my abs aren't fit enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not contributing enough? These are in our head where we're creating thoughts that sort of give a hint that maybe you've got perfectionist tendencies when you constantly are thinking that what you're doing isn't enough. Oh, my cake doesn't look like the one on Pinterest, or that report wasn't perfect. Those are signs that perfectionism is creeping in. Okay, so if you're guilty of perfectionism, you can put guilty as charged in the comments and sort of declare it to yourself to say, yep, this is something I'm struggling with. You'll also know if anybody else is, and then you can exchange with them about ways to battle that. You have an accountability partner to say, hey, I want to stop this. Maybe if you say, okay, I'm going to read the Gifts of Imperfection, will you too? And we can talk about it. So really, if you want to take charge of your life and regain your confidence and you're struggling with perfectionism, this is the time to do that. Okay, good. So that is priority 1, stop perfectionism. Priority 2, to build back, to regain your confident self, is to stop, compare, and despair. And Martha Beck calls it compare and despair, because when you compare yourselves to others, you feel like crap about yourself. So compare and despair is a mistake that we all make, right? And I especially see it with expat spouses who have a partner who has this fancy assignment, fancy title, fancy promotions, meeting fancy people, and they feel like, hey, I'm not going on an airplane somewhere, or I'm not getting the salary increase. That is not helping you, right? So instead of comparing, tip 2 is see your amazingness. Okay, see your amazingness. And I know what you're thinking. Some of you are saying, Sunday, I'm not amazing. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just an expat spouse, right? Well, I'll tell you what. I work with a lot of expat spouses, and they are amazing. When I hear the things, the moments of heroism you've demonstrated in your life and for your family, and how you show up, how you've gone through cultures, learned languages, gone through crises, you are amazing, all right? So you have amazingness, even if you don't have an official status to hang on to. I know that we can find your amazingness because I see it all the time. Okay, so how do you find your amazingness? Okay, this is where one very simple thing to do is to look at the people around you, and you will say, this is what I see happening. People look around and say, oh, I'm not amazing. This person did that. This person did that. That's the compare and despair. But what's happening here is when you admire your friends or you admire the people in your community and you're just like them, you've forgotten that that's amazing. So especially expats who, make this transition every 2, 3, 4 years, move countries, learn language, transition their kids, help people deal with unresolved grief when their teens are frustrated. That is amazing. And because everybody else around you is doing that doesn't mean that isn't special. Okay, so here, this isn't compare and despair. This is, if you compare yourself to others, you have to see, just because you're just like the other people doesn't mean that isn't amazing. Okay, so how do you do that? You have to focus on what is. Okay, what do you do? Where is your heroism in the everyday? So even if it's mundane, what do you do day in and day out without fail? That's amazing. That's you showing up in your life. How do you support your family? So acknowledge what is working. Okay, so that is one way to see your amazingness. You can go to now. What is working now? You have some credit for that. You did something to create that. If you have a healthy partnership, wonderful children, if you've learned other languages, all of those things are amazing, right? Or if you just got out of bed this morning based on the crappy circumstances in your life, that is amazing. Okay, so look at what is. The next thing you might want to do if you're struggling with finding your amazingness, I see this happen a lot of times when people are at this border of accepting a new status. Like if you're going to apply for a new job, but you feel like it's above your head, or if you're in a new role and people are calling you, a journalist, and you're like, I'm not a journalist, I just write stories. So one strategy that works for you to really see that you are amazing and you are no fraud in what you say you're doing. Let's say you've started a business and you're a business owner. You say, oh, I'm not really a business owner. Or maybe you are doing art critique and you're saying, oh, I'm not really an art specialist. Whatever it is, here's a tip on how you can start to own it. I want you to make a list of what qualifies someone to call themselves, let's say, an expert or a specialist or whatever it is. And I'll tell you, I'm going to give you an example from my own life. In 2008, I started a job at the second biggest company in Switzerland, and everybody around me was calling me an expert or a specialist, intercultural specialist, intercultural expert. And I was like, oh my God. They're calling me an expert. I'm really not. Like, I'm embarrassed. Like, what if they find out that I'm not a specialist, I'm not an expert? And I realized I was walking around feeling what Sheryl Sandberg calls the fraud complex, right? And so I went home. I thought, this is ridiculous. I either tell them to stop calling me a specialist, an expert, or I own it. So I made a list of everything that would qualify someone to be called an intercultural specialist. So qualifications, years of experience abroad, level of relationships with cross-cultural individuals, etc., etc. And then I wrote down my experience. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is kind of embarrassing. Like, yeah, I fill every category here. So I didn't see it. There was something going on in terms of my confidence of stepping into owning who I am and what I can do. And it took this black and white list right in front of my face to own that confidence. So if you're struggling with stepping into an identity, whether it's being a great mom or whether it's being an entrepreneur or taking a new job title, whatever your identity you're trying to own into but still feel insecure about, make a list and then look at where you're at. And my guess is that you'll find that you complete a pretty darn good amount of the things on that list. And if you don't, no problem. Then you're like, oh, good. Well, now I have to work on that piece. And then you simply take action on that. So that, my friends, is what I call, if the shoe fits, wear it. So when you're trying to gain confidence and really step into who you are and your identity, whether you're a writer, an artist, a mom, a professional, a specialist, to gain confidence is to look at the shoe and see how it fits. Okay, so that is strategy 2. Strategy 3 is something that really works well when you're feeling a lack of confidence, and that is to seek third-party validation. Seek third-party validation, and that simply means go to your friends, your colleagues, your loved ones, people that you've been to school with, and get a reality check. Okay? Ask them for their honest perspective. Okay, so one thing that I was recently working on a client with is that they were saying, I don't think I'm qualified for this job. Okay, so go to an outside perspective and say, okay, how qualified do you think I am for this job? What qualities do I have that say I am? Okay, so that's what I mean by going to a third-party validation, is get reality checks. When I was going through my coach training, I asked my dear friends about qualities that make me a good coach. And that felt really vulnerable to get feedback from my friends, but they love me, so what was I really going to have to lose? And when I got that feedback from people, wow, I saw things from them that I never really saw about myself. So hearing from other people, the people you love and trust and care about, and you respect their opinion, getting third-party validation, it's hard to deny that reality check. And that's, excuse me, the beginning of letting it sink in. Okay? You might say, well, what about me would suggest I'm a good entrepreneur? How am I qualified for this job? What are my strengths? Whatever you're struggling with right now, you can ask. Okay? You might have seen that commercial where they film children saying how the person's a good mom or a good dad, and the parents watch what they say. This is what I mean by third-party validation, that letting it sink in. And what it does is it gives you a reality check, not fantasy, that things that go on in our heads, what we tell ourselves that are not true, but reality from people we respect. Okay, so that is important. Seek third-party validation. Okay, so far we've looked at 3 steps. Stop perfectionism. Stop comparing. Instead, see your amazingness. And seek third-party validation, okay? A reality check from the outside. And number 4 is just take action, okay? This is what we know from the research. You gain confidence in the doing. And if I just did an episode called, it was just last week, about stopping fear, how not to let fear hold you back. So check my podcast episodes on Expat Happy Hour. How can you get over that fear and start taking action? I have a whole episode with tips for you there, but one of them is to act as if you're not afraid and just take action. You kind of rope yourself into a situation where you have to do it. So that's what you can do. Start taking action. And if you're feeling nervous, then do little mini experiments, tiny steps forward for you to test the waters. And then you'll see, oh, that wasn't so bad. Maybe you want to gain confidence public speaking. So you do one little impromptu introduction at a meeting. And then maybe you give a 1-minute speech. And then you go to a 5-minute speech. That is a way that you can test the waters. Just take action. And we know it's not something you're going to like to hear, but it's the truth. But you gain confidence by taking action. Get over yourself and do it, okay? And in the doing, you will calm your fear. That's why when you give a speech, you're nervous the first, 15 to 20 seconds, but in the speaking, you calm down, okay? And we have to be really honest with ourselves. Why are you afraid? Okay, are you afraid to fail? And the joke of it is that we know every successful person, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, any leader, they learn and have become good through failure. Okay, so that's the catch-22 there, that we need to take action to learn. All right, so that's step 4, just take action. I know these are not nice things to hear because it makes you take action and get out of your comfort zone, but it is the truth. And step 5 is celebrate the little victories. Okay, you're getting out of your comfort zone, you're taking risks, you're feeling vulnerable, you're building your skills and your strengths, and don't forget to celebrate the little victories along the way. This biologically in our brain helps us see our progress, helps us have a balanced look of a reality. To celebrate is to notice, and it will help you notice your progress. And when we notice progress, we feel motivated to keep going. All right, so let's recap. Stop perfectionism, stop comparing, instead see your amazingness. Seek third-party validation by going to the outside and getting a reality check. Take action in little steps and celebrate your victories. Okay, so your assignment, if you are serious about getting your confident self back, then pick one of these areas to focus on. What do you feel inside your body going, yeah, I really should commit to that one point? Okay, if you want to hold yourself accountable, you can post it in the comments saying, Sunday, I'm going to take action on this one thing. If you'd rather do that privately, you can email me at sunday@Schneider-Bean.com, and I will be your accountability partner. You can tell me what you're going to do and by when, and I'll check in on you on how it's going. Okay, so take action today. Believe me, the research shows how important it is for you to get your confident self back. You deserve to be living a life where you feel confident, happy, and successful. And this is an important step in that direction. All right, so it's time to stop this delusion of smallness and get back to the reality of how you deserve to be confident about what you can do, okay? The only thing that is holding you back right now is you, and you can do this. And if I can do this, and my clients can do this, so can you. So I will leave you with words of wisdom from Theodore Roosevelt. Each time we face our fear, we gain strength, courage, and confidence in the doing. Okay, so here I'm wishing you confidence in the doing. Reach out to me in the comments or in an email if I can support you in any way, or if you have any questions based on this live session today. Take care. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.